The Communist Party of China celebrates its 100th anniversary. Hello, I'm Ahmed, and this is The Heat. The Communist Party of China is marking a major milestone, its centenary anniversary. Thousands gathered in Beijing's Tiananmen Square on Thursday to celebrate the occasion, and they heard an address from Chinese President Xi Jinping, who is also General Secretary of the CPC Central Committee. We begin with this report from CGTN correspondent Cui Hui'ao in Beijing.
A dignified march across Tiananmen Square at the heart of Beijing. The honor guards marched on the red carpet and raised the Chinese flag. Around 70,000 spectators watched the ceremony on Tiananmen Square, including party members and the general public. In his speech, President Xi Jinping, also the General Secretary of the party, highlighted the CPC's journey over the past century. One of the greatest achievements, he said, was to build a moderately prosperous society.
On this special occasion, it's my honor to declare on behalf of the party and the people that through the continued efforts of the whole party and the entire nation, we have realized the first centenary goal of building a moderately prosperous society in all respects. This means that we have brought about a historic resolution to the problem of absolute poverty in China. And we're now marching with confident strides towards the second centenary goal of building China into a great modern socialist country in all respects. This is the great and glorious accomplishment for the Chinese nation, for the Chinese people, and for the Communist Party of China.
A 3,000-person choir gave a performance. They included students of different ages, from elementary school pupils to college students.
In the new era, our young people should make it their mission to contribute to national rejuvenation and aspire to become more proud, confident, and assured in their identity as Chinese people, so that they can live up to the promise of their youth and the expectations of our times, our party, and our people.
Together, they sang several songs that are very familiar to the Chinese, many of which were composed in wartime. And a performance in the sky as well. Military helicopters and fighter jets formed the numbers 171 to signify centenary and the date July 1st.
We must take resolute action to utterly defeat any attempt towards Taiwan independence and work together to create a bright future for national rejuvenation. No one should underestimate the resolve, the will, and the ability of the Chinese people to defend their national sovereignty and territorial integrity.
President Xi called on party members to continue working together to realize the Chinese dream. That is to build China into a strong, prosperous, and harmonious nation. The CPC went from a small group of around 50 members to now one of the world's largest political parties with more than 95 million members. Party officials say its ability to weather many storms shows the party's strength and vitality.
We must tighten the party's organizational system, work hard to train high-caliber officials who have both moral integrity and professional competence, remain committed to improving party conduct, upholding integrity in combating corruption, and root out any elements that would harm the party's advanced nature and purity and any viruses that would erode its health.
Over the past century, China has been transformed from a poor and backward country to the world's second largest economy. As the CPC celebrates this important milestone today, a new chapter has also begun. The party says it plans to draw experience and strength from history as it forges ahead to further rejuvenate the nation and, more importantly, to build a better life for the Chinese people.
伟大光荣正确的中国共产党万岁！伟大光荣英雄的中国人民万岁！
Cui Hui'ao, CGTN, reporting from Tiananmen Square in Beijing.
There is much to discuss. Joining me now from Beijing is Victor Gao. He's an international relations expert and is also chair professor at Soochow University. From Atlanta, we're joined by Yawei Liu. He is director of the Carter Center's China program. Also joining us from Shanghai is Zoon Ahmed Khan. She is a visiting fellow at Tsinghua University. And with us from Portland, Oregon is Liang. She is professor of economics at Willamette University. Thank you to all of you for being with us. And Victor Gao, let me start with you. As we just heard from our reporter there, China has made enormous strides over the decades and has now become one of the biggest economies in the world. It's also seen enormous progress in science and technology and is also playing a very big and important role in international governance. So I think it's fair to say that the country has been transformed, but give us a sense of how big a role the CPC has played in this transformation.
Thank you very much for having me. I would say the history of China for the past 100 years is more or less the history of the Communist Party of China. Why? Because ever since it was born in 1921 all the way up to 1949 when the People's Republic of China was founded, CPC played a very important role in, for example, the war of resistance against Japanese aggression, and then in liberating China from foreign forces which were oppressing the Chinese people, and eventually through a civil war, the Communist Party of China became the ruling party of China. This was the decision given by history as well as the choice by the Chinese people. Now, ever since 1949, CPC has led the People's Republic of China through many stages and through many heroic and historical events, including, for example, the Korean War, where Chinese People's Volunteers fought against the U.S. troops and other troops and pushed the U.S. troops from the Yalu River all the way to the 38th parallel. Now, again, if we look at the achievements in the 1960s, China became very fast in industrialization. And I would say, starting in 1978, CPC led China onto the path of reform and opening to the outside world, emancipating the Chinese productivity and efficiency. And by now, China is indeed the second largest economy if we use official exchange rate, but China is already the largest economy if we use the purchasing power parity, and China is the largest trading nation, largest manufacturing nation, and the largest producer of many things, up to more than 250 different major items. And the Chinese production is not only largest in the world, but accounts for, in many cases, more than 50% of the global production. And the Chinese people have longer life expectancy, physical height of the people is increasing, and wealth and public health and education have been generally provided to the people. And by the end of last year, China declared that abject poverty as a phenomenon has been eliminated in China. And this gives hope to the Chinese people that their tomorrow will be better than today, and China's international influence and the impact on the global stage will also be further increasing. This is the exciting moment, and I think CPC has all the justification to celebrate the 100-year centenary yesterday and throughout this week in China. And I think if any political party anywhere in the world has any justification and solid record, as the CPC has over the past several decades, they will truly win the support of the people and the confidence of the people, as we here in China fully support the CPC.
Yawei Liu, welcome to the program. What is your overall perspective as China marks this 100th anniversary? And if we look, for instance, beyond shaping China's economic success, how important has the CPC been to Chinese society and giving it the very unique identity that it has?
Well, I think Victor Gao has said it very well, but I slightly disagree with what he said. The history of the last 100 years is just the history of the Chinese Communist Party. It is the history of the Chinese Communist Party interacting with other groups in China who also aspire, to make China great again. So that's one thing. The second thing I would like to say is, if you read the speech very carefully, and you hear Xi Jinping well, is that yes, China has accomplished a lot, but the future for China is still a little uncertain. That's why she emphasizes that we need to have a strong military. We need to have a party, already of 95 million people, but that party, the members have to be of utmost moral integrity, as was mentioned by your reporter, as well as professional capability. And he also mentioned, the growing threat from outside China. So while it is a good thing to celebrate, but I think it's also a moment to look back, at times when China was not doing so well. And that's why Victor Gao said, reform and opening up, because the party has not heard from the people for a while. And that's what Xi Jinping emphasized in his speech, is that Chinese context cannot be ever ignored. And also, the party need to hear the voice of the people loud and clear. So people want happiness. I think as long as that is born by the leaders of the party, that it's all about their happiness. It's not about the party itself. It's not about any interest groups. Then I think China is going to do fine.
Zoon Ahmed Khan, let's turn now to China's place in the world. And President Xi Jinping, in that address, also talked about how China will continue to work with other countries. Let's listen to that part of his speech.
The party will continue to work with all peace-loving countries and peoples to promote the shared human values of peace, development, fairness, justice, democracy, and freedom. We will continue to champion cooperation over confrontation, to open up rather than close our doors, and to focus on mutual benefits instead of zero-sum games. We will oppose hegemony and power politics and strive to keep the wheels of history rolling towards bright horizons.
So, Zoon, we hear President Xi make those pledges there. He doesn't name any countries. But how significant is China's pledge to promote cooperation over confrontation, especially when we look at today's world, which is evolving and changing all the time?
Firstly, Anand, thank you for having me. And I think the first thing to recognize, someone from a developing country myself, I'm from Pakistan, and us countries that are still developing, we have been told for too many years, for too long, that westernization, so to speak, or certain systems, mimicking systems of supposedly developed countries is the only way forward. So before I get to your question, I'd like to answer this, that the success of the CPC is significant for the world for also this reason, that it promotes the idea that we all need to have a sense of self-governance, self-reliance, make our development, our policies people-centric, acknowledge contributions of people, and keep our own unique historical context in mind as we move forward. And I think this is a very important aspect of China's increasing enhanced role in the world, especially when we talk about the Global South, that even though cooperation and partnerships are improving and deepening, there isn't a sense of imposing, despite China's success, there isn't a sense of imposing on other countries that we need to mimic the Chinese system, so to speak, or have a certain set of policies or practices that are in line with what China followed, but in fact follow your own method and your own way forward. That said, the second thing about a zero-sum game, well, China currently is rising in a world that even though we are looking at more of a multipolar system, we are looking at many various countries in the world rising and improving, and China being the most significant. China doesn't ask its partners to choose between them and, obviously, if we talk about the US or their allies, there seems to be a sense of maintaining the current status quo from that side. Mm-hmm. So for China, I think that the major challenge currently is, despite this alliance, so to speak, forming against their rise, maintaining their current level of partnership with countries, and at the same time making sure that they are contributing to development, to genuine development, not just growth in these countries. So if we look at the Belt and Road, currently it's moving from phase 1 to phase 2, and the idea is to make sure that socioeconomic development and prosperity becomes part of increased engagement with these countries. And then I think when we look at how China has promoted multilateralism, I'll take the example of the SCO. Yep. The idea is to improve countries' economies and provide opportunities for young people and otherwise to make sure that stability becomes more, there's more stability in the region at large and in countries at large. So if I look at China's interactions and increased role in the world, and also the fight against COVID-19 and how China has promoted other countries to fight in a better way, also provided a template for many countries to fight in a more effective way, we see that there seems to be a more positive and increased role of the country.
Liang, since the start of reform and opening up, a big part of China's economic success has come down to strategic planning, and we've seen how China has done it. I mean, if we just take the United States as a comparison, we've seen the enormous problems that the United States has experienced in trying to get its infrastructure plans off the ground. So how key are these 5-year plans that China has formulated and that it has implemented in meeting its major goals?
Good to talk to you again, Anand. So I think you're right. I think China's model is very unique. So one of the speakers have talked about, this idea of reform and opening. So what China is unique here is that it combines very effectively the role of the state and the market. So it's not a dogmatic, Western where market has to be the center and the state has to remain on the sideline. So what China has done is exactly using this kind of sovereign monetary power and plan very carefully for long term. So there are some short-term efficiency, for example, that may be compromised because the state-owned enterprises may not be as profitable as the private enterprises. But these state-owned enterprises, they have engaged in really long-term building, like infrastructure, and also playing a role in some other areas like social services, and also like expanding China's capital and investment abroad. So I think it's a great combination between the state and the market, the short term and the long term, and I think that is the key for China's success. And also talking about the opening, right? China is not rushed to deregulate the economy, to liberalize the economy with the neoliberalism doctrine, but rather gradually and pragmatically open its economy, integrate its economy to the world and absorb any technologies and good lesson plans from the rest of the world without giving up its own characteristics. So I think, yes, it's a great model that works for China's reality. And I think, like the previous speaker talked about, that other countries could also aspire to borrow some lessons from this unique approach.
Victor Gao, President Xi in that address also said that China will not allow what he called sanctimonious preaching. And he also said that China will not be bullied. He said China will defend its national sovereignty and its territorial integrity. Can you give us some perspective on that, especially when it comes to issues like Taiwan and Hong Kong?
Well, thank you. I think what President Xi Jinping said yesterday in his important speech is basically China has developed its own system and political values, and the Chinese people fully support that, and it worked miracles. Now, China would not accept any foreign country enforcing their value system or political choice onto the Chinese people. In a sense, philosophically speaking, no one possesses the absolute truth, and the truth you may have may actually work for you rather than others. In a sense, I think it's the system of my system for my people and your system for your people. And I think in this way, it will encourage mutual respect rather than, for example, the false belief that you actually possess the absolute truth and you want the truth of your choice, of your version, to be imposed onto other country. And I think President Xi Jinping has never been clearer than yesterday in his important speech in telling the whole world that China wants to pursue its own path of development and no other country can force their version onto China. Now, President Xi Jinping also touched upon a lot of issues, both domestic as well as international. I would say the key message is now China is a force for peace. China wants to resolve all these different issues with different countries peacefully by mutual respect, rather than, for example, by force. And this, again, gives confidence for the world going forward that despite of increase in size of China, China will continue to be a force for peace and stability.
Right. Yawei, despite China's success, it is coming for a lot of criticism in the West, and including in that criticism, there's been a denunciation of the one-party system. Is there a fundamental misunderstanding in the West about what the CPC is and how it fits in with China's system?
Well, I'm not sure whether there's a fundamental misunderstanding. As Victor Gao said, this is a political system of Chinese characteristics. I think what Xi Jinping was trying to tell the people as well as the world that China tried everything. The only party that was able to lead the people and the country into current glorious stage is the Communist Party. So that narrative, I guess, has to be accepted by the outside world, or either the outside world is going to accept it, or China has to try even harder to get that narrative to be understood by the West. So there is the communication gag between what China is trying to say and how the outside world understands, what's going on in China. But the message yesterday is very clear. China wants to receive all the good things from every civilization, but China will refuse to be lectured. I guess that's going to continue, and so the confrontation or the misunderstanding of each other looks like is going to go on.
Right, Zoon, you wanted to say something on that?
I do. Okay, so I think I agree with what Mr. Yawei is saying. The point is, however, I feel China must realize, and Chinese people must realize, I think, that the Western narrative is really just one narrative. It doesn't represent a majority of the world's people. And there are majority of the world's people come from developing countries that have faced this kind of bias, have been told what to do, but they just didn't have that strength or maybe that momentum that China has. It's obviously, we're talking about 1.4 billion people, and the CPC's contributions are significant because it's consistently for 100 years constantly learned. I think learning is also a very key aspect of the Communist Party, because right now, currently, the West for many years has thought that we've reached the end of history. This system is ideal. It has to be globally accepted. We need a uniformity in terms of governance style to achieve peace. But when you look at a country that's studying its history for 5,000 years, I've been to villages in China where people know for 2,000 years they've been practicing a certain kind of medicine or something, and it works. And how do you tell these people who have lived a good life and they are improving constantly that, no, this system isn't for you, you change? So we need to recognize that a country that has such a long history, such a rich history, first of all, understands that no system, no idea is universal, it's perfect. So there is the spirit of constant learning. And secondly, very important, people are the center. China's development, China's narrative is all about recognizing people's contributions. The July 1st medal is one example. COVID-19, the frontliners were the heroes. So we in developing countries need to learn this. And secondly, that it's a matter of time. I think it's just a matter of time, and China doesn't need to confront, hopefully nothing, there will be no reason to confront very strongly, but the world agrees with China. A majority of the world will agree with China's sentiment.
Liang, looking ahead, and we have a climate now of intense competition between China and the United States, but what can we expect from China in terms of the global economy.
Right. So if I may, I want to quickly add to just the last point. I think China is building a very unique economic system, and it's also building a very unique political system. And there's no ultimate truth that multi-party system is evidently better than one-party system. I think as long as the party is going to remain self-reflective and critical and continue to be adaptive and also based on consultations and also act on consensus, I do think that it could lead China to another important success. For the future, I think China still needs to I think mostly focus on its own internal challenges, be it decarbonization, be it dealing with technological self-reliant and promote the so-called high quality growth, and also trying to make that shared prosperity more well spread. I think all of these are really important tasks for the party and for the country. In terms of external, I think it's clear that Biden now is trying to build back a better world, especially starting from the United States. And I think there are ways for both countries to work together, both for the United States benefits and also for China's benefits.
Victor Carr, I've only got a minute left, but obviously the world and circumstances have changed a great deal in the past 100 years. It's changed radically, in fact. So what is your view on how the party has been able to adapt to meet the demands of what we have in China now, which is a growing middle class and a very vibrant youth sector in the country?
Well, I think President Xi Jinping emphasized again and again in his important speech that the Chinese Communist Party should not forget their original missions, and their mission is to serve the people in China and to strive for the national rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. Now, in order to do this, in order to convince the Chinese people that the CPC is truly the leading core for the Chinese nation to achieve these very, very major goals, they need to do their homework. They need to really be successful in the plans and strategies they lay out for China. And I would say in doing so, China is not only working for the benefit of the Chinese people, 1.4 billion and plus, but also in its turn working for the overall general benefit of mankind. This is what CPC is, and this is what China is. And I think the world will be tomorrow if CPC and China succeed in their missions and endeavors.
Okay, thank you. Thanks to all of you for being with us. It's been a great discussion, and that is it for this edition of The Heat. I'm Ahmed Naidu. Thanks for watching.